Yo, welcome to the Jarmal and Mick Podcast. I'm Jarmal,
I'm Mick.
and if you're rocking with us, you family, that's for sure. We're gonna cover a lot of topics, talk about an arrangement of things from spirit to religion to modernity, the things that we face in this world nowadays as real souls. You know, we coming from the perspective of real souls, really and truly. And me and my bro, we've been feeling led to share our medicine through music, through visuals, photography, and now a podcast. You know, we had all of these different tools laying around, and Mickey was saying, "Yo, we should do a podcast. If anybody can do a podcast, and that's on YouTube and all these different streaming platforms, we could definitely do it." So we want to welcome y'all into the space, and like I say, we're going to talk about a lot of different things. So stay tuned. Definitely like, share, and subscribe. This thing is going to take on its like a life of its own, and it's going to do what it do. So yeah, we're excited to be here, and we're going to get started. Yo, Mick, you got anything you want to start with, bruh?
Just excited to be here, man. Excited to express myself from a place of being connected to what is within inside of me. Just to be able to speak on that and see where it goes.
100%.
Just in the moment,
100%. It's always gonna be in the moment, man. And just so you know, your camera's definitely gotten blurry since we went live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just as a heads up. So should we just keep going? We can edit this stuff out.
Yeah, we can keep going. It might have something to do with just the internet itself.
Fair enough. Okay, so all right, fam. So we're gonna get started. We're gonna talk about a few topics. Again, like Mickey said, we're just gonna be in the flow of the spirit, and this is our very first podcast, which is a big deal. So, is there any topics you wanted to hit, brother?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a couple things. About basically like religion, I guess, and trying to find who you are as a person, as a soul on this earth. And when you're first born, you kind of have more of an understanding of what that is, I feel like. And then you're given a lot of things throughout your life that can kind of take you away from that, and you're constantly basically changing based on what you see in your eyes, kind of, and you have to perceive, and you can end up like believing in certain things that you see here and really rock with that and go with that, and then you'll find something else, and all that is just trying to remain who you actually are, before you were putting on this earth, is what we call earth.
Yeah, and I feel like right off the top of my spirit, it's like the only constant thing in this life is change. The only thing that you can basically count on is change, and I do feel in my soul that a lot of what we came here for and the different experiences that we have in different lifetimes or in this moment, a so-called 2025, and we're here for particular reason and specific things. And and in my understanding, those things are chosen, on the other side, by way of the family you come through, the womb or the waters you come through, the seed that you come through in your father, right? So when I think about myself and the upbringing I had, and a lot of my foundation, a lot of my bedrock was in the Pentecostal church, and what's cool about that at this point in my life, looking back on that was always a touch point, that was always my foundation. As like a 7-8-year-old, I remember seeing folks being healed, by touch, and, Pastor Moore in Edenton, North Carolina, he laid hands on folks, and he had the Spirit, in that school of thought, it'd be considered the Holy Spirit, right? But a lot of what my ancestors my most recent ancestors practice was given to them. It was imposed upon them. It was their original land-based practices were taken from them, right? So they were given a westernized, Eurocentric belief system, which really was a form of control. So just to kind of touch on that quickly, like, yeah, I hear you. And in this life, I only think, or the only thing rather, is that you can count on is change. That's it.
Yeah. Change in what sense, though? Like, like change in a group. Because what I was speaking on is more like when you get in your mind and you think you know something. Like you think
Right.
it's this way. You know what I mean? Like there's, like this has to be the only way. Like this is it. This is the truth. This book is the truth, or whatever religion that you have. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's more of like a worldly mindful thing, because that was written by a person, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's somebody that's trying to connect to what put us here. You know what I mean? And so it's a beautiful thing, but at the same time, you have your own connection with it. You have your own whisper in your head. You know what I mean? Like in yourself. You have your own connection with whatever you want to call it. God. Like I was talking to him today. Like sometimes I talk to him constantly, out loud. And we just have conversations. We converse back and forth, And he tells me what I need to work on, whether I listen or not. And then I feel like sometimes I'm affected physically if I don't listen. Like I'll get like sick, kind of. I just won't feel good if I'm not doing what I'm told within myself. If I'm not staying disciplined with what he's saying to me, basically, which is a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Well, that all of that, I'm following you. I'm with you on that, and I'm in this space in this conversation with you. When we talk about change, or as far as what I meant by change, is that energy never dissipates, right? Like energy is always going to exist. One would say the soul is going to always exist. It's eternal, right? And a lot of what these books are really here to do is record books, and obviously throughout time immemorial, things get watered down, or things get shifted, or things get taken out, put in, whatever is in the modern time. In my opinion, right, it's again, to the point you're making, it's up to you internally to be able to discern, take those things. So for me, right, there is medicine in everything, but the foundation, the direct connect to anything and everything, is within you. I can look at just about anything and find the source, or find the harmony of balance, or limitlessness, or the soul, or the eternal, or whatever words that we as beings, as humans, or whatever you want to call it, that we try to connect to in order to find ourselves again. So like when you say, oh, I'm having conversations with God and out loud, I can resonate with that. And my connection and my understanding with that is that it is you. It is you. It's internal. It's a reflection. Everything that we manifest, or everything we put our hands on, and anything we venture into in our lives, is really just a big ass mirror, right? Like it's a mirror to you. Like with photography, anything that I am connecting with my physical eye is also a reflection of my first eye, right? My connection to where I come from. So that leads me into speaking to, like, there's no coincidence.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like language and books and these things and that thing. But at the end of the day, the mirror is always going to be, like there's a saying that is, everywhere you go, there you are. You can't run away from yourself. So no matter what you choose to give yourself over to, the change that I'm speaking of, that's the only thing you can count on is your transformation, your growth, your illumination of maybe places in your soul that you weren't fully aware of at one point in your life. And I believe that that's why a lot of what those agreements on the other side have to do with. There
So
is. Go ahead.
so I feel like I understand what you're saying. I get it. But what just popped in me is like when you're first a baby, right?
Hmm.
Do you think? And I'm saying this from my own experience. Like,
Yeah. Speak your soul, bro.
do you think that when you're born, the way that we live our life basically kind of takes us away from what you're talking about? Basically, is
Yeah, it's
and,
and
and it's limiting the way that it's not like your parents' fault, you know what I mean, or their parents'
nah.
fault. It's just the way things have been set up, and it's the way
Hmm.
that we've been teaching our children to learn. Basically, like there's something deeper inside of them that they have at a young age. When they're first born, I wish they knew how to speak our language so that they could tell us certain things. But then we're like surrounded by a bunch of things that are distractions in a sense to try. That's how I feel, to try to get connected with that. And that as I grow up, I start to realize, like you're saying, like I start to realize that like all the things that I was told kind of took me away from that simple peace and harmony that was already in me when I was first born, you know?
See, but that's
like
the thing.
that's like being a child and having so much love. Like my daughter just waves to everybody, you know? And I feel like she's wondering, like I was looking at her the other day at the beach and I felt like she was wondering why people aren't being more communicative towards each other, not talking to each other. People are just walking by each other like we don't exist. Like there's no real community. You know what I mean? People are just going
That's
by
what the
each other like
programming
we're not
is.
even there. And I can see it. I can see it in her when I'm looking in her eyes. She's like wondering why it's like this in a sense, you know?
Yeah.
But she's not
Yeah.
fully developed, like you're saying. So like the change is happening.
Well, she's closer to the doorway. Like
Exactly, that's what I'm
the
saying. That's
the
what I'm
reality.
saying. And then
She's
you're-
closer to
you're
spirit.
taken away from it, you know?
Well,
But go
that's
ahead.
I don't necessarily agree with that because nothing can be taken away from you, right? Like if you come here with a specific mission and a specific amount of agreements, for example, to share your gift or your medicine to impact the world. Now, you can decide to take the detour. You can decide to,
Exactly, that's what
kind
I'm
of
saying.
base everything in a Western experience. Like a lot of what you see in the Western world, it is that, right? But there's also, on the flip side of that coin, there's always two sides to a coin. Third density experience is always dualistic in nature. You have a light and a dark, an up and a down, right? Like it's always two sides to this. There's people that are doing they are aligned in their purpose. They are resonant and moving in their purpose, right? And we get to, when we're aligned in our purpose, we have those experiences and we project out what we are. Now, if we're not, in my own perspective, my own understanding, if you are on a detour, you're going to get a lot more of the things that are not necessarily resonant with you. A lot of the interactions you have. And a lot of times, this really boils down to alchemy, right? You can be I've experienced it myself. I'm in spaces all the time, whether it's just mundane daily life. But when I walk into a space, I transform that space because my ancestors walk with me. I don't allow somebody flying some kind of energy, a flag of like imbalance or hatred, that cannot penetrate my energy, my body, my bubble, the signature and the symbolism that I walk with. It's not possible because I'm gonna take that energy and I'm gonna twist it and alchemize it, and I'm gonna spit out another formula that puts a barrier between that stuff and me. I've seen many times people will have a certain energy or a certain look in their eyes, but after a while of me being around, it dissipates. I'm not a victim to this. I'm not a victim to life. I tell life what to do. I don't walk around with a victimized mind, and I don't hang my hat on the this one idea of this or that. I understand that I am connected to everything. I understand that I'm responsible and accountable for everything that I do. Right? So life is not going to tell me and do what it wants with me. I don't give my energy and my focus because I know my power in manifesting. Why would I pay attention to things that are not in alignment? I want those things to starve. I want those things to not get fed any energy. So they don't get my attention. They don't get any sort of focus from me at all. Because if I'm giving it my focus and I'm paying attention, which paying with energy, my body, my soul, my spirit, my mind, I am giving that thing permission to fester and to grow.
Okay, so for me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you on that 100%, obviously. I mean, we've talked about it millions of times.
Sweet.
So when we get in that space, for me,
Mm-hmm.
I look at the world around and I look at life around, and I feel like it's really hard to move in that, surrounded by the opposite of that, in a sense, because I do feel like it's the opposite of that, and it's hard to, with just like daily life, it just seems like it's not meant for me, in a sense.
Well, I feel like that's why you're here. It is meant for you, personally, because if it wasn't meant for you, you wouldn't agree. In my own understanding, you wouldn't have agreed to be here to do this. There's a lot of things that we don't get. We don't have full alignment and permission to run away from. There are certain things that we came here to stand in the fire around.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I wasn't meant to be here. I'm definitely meant to be here. I mean, I'm here. So obviously there's a reason why I'm here, right?
Right.
So what I'm saying is it's hard to find that path, because I take one path and I think that's the path, and then we take another path. Like we all do it. Like we've all taken multiple paths.
Well,
we're all searching. We're
so
all
if
searching. We're all
so
trying
if it's
to
hard
remember,
for you, yeah, for sure,
we don't fully. There's nobody here that fully knows, and that's just the reality.
That's not true. That's not true.
That fully knows.
For sure.
Okay.
The difference between a person or a soul that is in alignment with their knowing versus a person that's in alignment with external mental mind thinking is a person that can go through and actually see the medicine in whatever they're in the midst of, and have the ability to change that, and have the ability to take those opportunities in those moments to actually invigorates them. It actually gives them more confirmation.
So I'm just talking for me. That's what I'm saying.
No, and because
so for me, I can't do that. I can't do that. It doesn't feel like I can fully become that because of what I'm surrounded by. If that makes sense, like that's.
It does, and that's why it fully makes sense, bro. And that's why it's so important that, every single day that we are in these vessels, that we are putting our energy into the clarity, seeking that clarity that we need in order to be in the knowing, because the knowing doesn't dictate, or the knowing isn't looking to necessarily to have a certain outcome, or for things to look a certain way, because the knowing is the knowing is the knowing. It's not dictated by external factors. It's not dictated by lived experiences or traumas. It's not dictated by how you emotionally feel one day or the other. Wise mind and emotional mind are two different things. Emotional mind will have situations unfold in the emotional path. Wise mind can actually be in the midst of the chaos and still vibrate and still make decisions from the place of wisdom, deep wisdom.
So if you could give somebody advice on how to get into the wise mind, so that they can start walking in their purpose, what would it be? Like what would
you? I would say.
What would it be for somebody to try to become that? Because I think a lot of people probably want that type of peace.
Yeah, and real souls are always gonna have that internal barometer in them, that measuring stick of purpose, of alignment, of really walking in what fulfills them. And they don't real souls that really came here to, at this time, in this era, in this space, this is all on purpose. This is not a coincidence. I was born in 1989. It is now so-called 2025. This is the way that this is. So like one of my elders told me in divination, he said, you've done this many times before. You've come to do specific things at specific times before. This is not the first time you've done this. So for me, right, if I was to give somebody advice, it would be more like consider creating the circumstances, creating the climate that allows you to be with yourself. Because just like I tell my oldest child, you have to love yourself and be comfortable with your own company before you can even start thinking about having relationships outside of yourself. The first relationship that you get to have and get to actually value is the one with yourself. No need of a person, no need of a thing, no need of a place, no need of a trinket or an item that you bought off of a shelf.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
The first relationship is with yourself.
Yep.
And if you're someone that you have no problem spending time with yourself, and you find joy in that, you're probably an empath, just like myself. And empaths specifically need to have time by themselves to unplug, to wipe all of the smudge and the energy off from a given day or week or month, to clear themselves. So I would consider, or so-called advice, I would just have y'all consider that when you understand that nothing can be taken away from you, no thing has the power to take your purpose away from you. It's in you, alive in you. It is your responsibility to create the climate to be able to have alignment with it. And to be curious, be very curious, be open to, whatever it is in those days and those moments, because a lot of times you're going to strike memory chords from your childhood. And you're going to be like, oh yeah, I used to do that. But as this brother Mickey just said, yeah, you go through life. The programming is what it is, especially in the Western world. And you get to a certain point in your life where you're like, you're trying to pay bills and you're trying to, whatever you're trying to do based off the programming.
Exactly. Well, that's
but
what
you
I'm
give
saying. And we give too much of our energy towards that. You know what I mean? And it's hard.
I don't.
It's hard not to sometimes. I'm not saying you don't, but I'm saying a lot of people do. And that's what we're, to try to touch people, to try to get them.
Yeah, and I agree. And that's
we
going
can all come together as a collective in that same awareness. Like it's going to be a beautiful thing. We're going to learn a lot of things from each other.
See, that's the thing too. I would invite all of the listeners and all of the viewers to consider this. It is changing. It is impacting. It already is happening. The difference between maybe someone listening to this as they drive in their car, or someone having a dream and they wake up and they write it down, and they just reread this dream. They don't share it with anyone. The only difference between my voice or this visual, if you're watching this on YouTube, is a camera. It is happening, right? And that's where faith comes in, because a lot of times folks get really uneasy when it comes to the unknown or the darkness. And that's where a lot of the programming around darkness and the unknown is, a lot of that stuff, the fear of darkness. When darkness is you, your soul is dark. Your soul is of the universe. So when we talk about programming, particularly in the Western civilized, so-called civilized cultures, they inundate you from a child. And even with slavery movies, they have a new slavery movie every year. They taught me in 5th and 6th grade about slavery. They didn't actually take the time, this is obviously on purpose, to teach me the real history of my ancestors and my people, and the things that we taught people, and the things that we brought from spirit down into the third density. So the only difference between it is happening. I just have a camera in my face. I have audio equipment. There is no difference. It is happening. And it's going to take it. The real souls are getting and receiving their downloads and their alignments in this moment, just as we started with music for years. Me and his brother Mickey started doing music, having fun with the spirit of rhythm and drums and sounds of our voices and cadences and et cetera, et cetera. It then transformed into Cowrie Band, right? Or Cowrie World, excuse me. And then that transformed into visuals. You know, I told my brother, man, I've always been into visuals since I was younger. I've always, these were my first cameras right there. And well, my first camera is here, right? But these things are only, these things are those tools are there and accessible. We just get, we get to be curious. We get to be open, and we create the new world. The new world is not, we don't give the power away for the new world. I don't pay attention to any of these things politically and otherwise, because I understood from when I was younger, I had elders teach me the game. I'm not sitting around giving my energy to that, because I know that this is falling, and it has been falling, and it is falling. It's up to us.
So let me ask you this, right? So I feel the exact same way with you. Like all this, all the calendars, all that stuff. Like I don't even have time to focus on that stuff. I don't want to. I have time to, but I don't want to. But basically, when you're surrounded by people that do, right, and you have this feeling of like you're in it in a sense, you know, because it comes into your space. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I become uncomfortable because I know that like it's not really something that I want to like in my spirit to like even engage in, but I sort of have to because I'm surrounded by it in a sense. I mean, I tell the people that I'm surrounded by that I don't believe in it, and then sometimes they get offended by it in a way, and I'm not even trying to offend anybody. I just don't believe in what the majority of people believe in, and then I'm left feeling like I shouldn't think that way in a sense, you know? Not saying that I'm going to change because of that, but I'm just saying I'm surrounded by that every single day, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a reminder to all of us that what we have within us is worth paying attention to. You know, it's if you look, if you know, especially with visuals and photography, this is something I have never really done in my life. I don't read books. I don't look at words on a two-dimensional page. My eyes are meant to be in the third dimension, and it's meant to do what it does here. I understand the mathematics of why they get these eyes to look at books and to be in that zone, and how damaging it is actually to your eyes, right? So why to look at pages or to look at words on a page? Yes, because that's a 2D.
I know it does strain your eyes,
especially with women. Yeah, it's not good for your eyes. Our eyes are meant to look at shapes and you know, different heights and things of that nature, and you know, we walk with this innate energy and power from the source, right? So then when we get in these situations and we realize these things are not resonant with us, if you look, the point I was making is if you look into history, all of the people that had endured some kind of strife or some kind of contention or some kind of opposition were usually people who did what? Spoke. They spoke up. Because even in the so-called scriptures, right? The tongue is mightier than the sword. So then when you think about where is a lot of the control at? Your speech. Art is heavily controlled from music on down. You know, you get on these platforms, and these platforms are heavily restricted, and they have these different, you know, they have these new terms and conditions you have to agree to pretty much every 6 months, right? Because the whole point of the matter is this. It's just like with a podcast. You're using your words. And in this case, we have visuals to go along with that for the folks that are joining us on YouTube. So you have to speak the truth. That's it. Really. And yeah, you can be uncomfortable in doing that. And yeah, you can feel isolated or ostracized or the black sheep of whatever. Exactly. And also, there is no one in history that did that. And, you know, if you look at some of the beautiful people from history, they didn't stop speaking the truth and what was in their soul to bring to the earth when they came. And that to me is more important, right? I can still love you. If you really dig into history and like do your homework on people like that, they spoke the truth, and they still They stood in that. They had their families. They had their communities. Because guess what? Like minds are going to resonate, right? And just because you're born by blood into a certain family or you live in a certain place on Mama Earth does not mean you need to be limited to that. The earth is our home. Wherever we put our feet is our home. You are not limited to, the so-called United Snakes of America, originally named Turtle Island. You're not limited. None of us are, or
But
anywhere.
What was it named before Turtle Island?
I mean, there's many names, but
That's what I mean.
I think. But what I mean. But what I mean. But then you can go ahead after this. But what I mean is like that's not really I'm not fixated on that. All
Yeah,
I need to
exactly, that's what I'm
understand.
saying.
All I need to understand is that in order to have connections to my own soul, to allow me to decipher and discern what my eyes are seeing, it's not really important for me to know the name, original name. What's more important to me is that, okay, that makes sense. Even on the first level, Turtle Island. Oh, that makes sense. My ancestors used to roam this land before that.
Yeah, see,
Before it
that's
was
the same, that's the
rebranded.
same way. I mean, that's the same thing I would have said.
But it's like, I'm not going to get into semantics about it because that's all I need. My soul going to do the rest of the sifting through of that.
Yeah.
Right? My ancestors going to decipher and decode shit for me off of that alone. I don't necessarily need to go and prove to my own ego and say, oh, it was this, it was this, it was this. Like, I understand that the root of it all, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything goes in circles, baby. Everything is in circles and spirals. So what has happened before will happen again, potentially. Most likely, rather. So it's not... Go ahead.
The word, I feel like words sometimes can be... what is it? It's like...
They're limiting.
Yeah, they're limiting, exactly. There's a deeper...
Yeah.
There's a deeper way to communicate that we have lost touch with.
Not really.
Well, I haven't lost touch with it, but
No.
when I'm talking to people, it's like it doesn't.
Yeah,
seem
but
like
what
it's
people are
always
you
there.
talking to, though?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, bro.
That's what I'm saying.
Surrounded by. That's
But
what
see,
I'm
that's
surrounded by.
that's where, as far as what I'm sharing with the people, my brother, through this conversation, is that you get to choose what people you're surrounded by.
Yes, I understand, but right now, I'm living in the city, and it's very difficult to
I
be
feel that.
in a vehicle, driving in traffic, looking around, and everybody's just straightforward or looking at their phones while they're driving. It's just like, bro, like this. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
After a while, it beats up on my soul, bro. Like
100%.
Like when I live back,
I love that, bro.
when I lived back home,
Mm-hmm.
it was such a more peaceful place to be because there was less people and less energy, to be honest, because it's hard to find genuine, and I'm just saying this, like, you can disagree, but for me, it's hard to find what I feel as genuine people, because sometimes people just speak words, and that's what I mean by words.
So let's pause on that.
Words are just words. Like,
Let's pause on that.
doesn't mean anything.
Let me ask you a question about that. Have you ever had an experience where you made a judgment about someone and then you meet them and they completely are outside of that judgment you made on them?
No, because I've never judged someone before I met them. I have judged someone while I met them, and then I turned out to be wrong. So
Okay.
I've never gone into a situation and judged somebody not knowing them. Like,
Okay,
even
so
if
what
I
I'm
see
saying,
something that they say on TV or whatever, bro. Like
yeah, no, and that's
what I mean?
everything you saying is truth, fam.
because
like,
because I just want to say one more thing and then you can go.
no, you
Because
say
it
whatever
go-
you
because-
need.
Because it goes back to, without words, there's an understanding of energy, and you can't meet someone's energy unless you're actually there with them, right? So like, people sometimes are like, what do you think about the president? I'm like, I don't know the president. You only know what he says behind the screen. Like,
Yeah, okay.
I don't
So now what?
I don't know his energy. You know what I mean?
Right. So now what?
But that's just an example. That's just an example.
Right, but so what I'm trying to really get to, and well, not really get to, but what I'm trying to offer this space is, okay, you had this interaction with this person. Now what? See, that's where I'm coming from with all of this. At the root of it all,
You learn from it.
at the root of it all, everywhere you go, there you are. Everything in this external experience is a reflection of you. Like, my wife told me, right? Told me this years ago. She was like, let's spend more time focusing on the things we want versus the things we don't want. And it took me a while to really sit with that teaching, right? Because I realized, I'm like, I spend a lot of time focusing on the shit I don't want or the things I don't like, right? We create our realities by default. If you are focusing, when you are focusing on the things that are in line, are in resonance, that you are connected to, by default, you know what the universe is going to do? By default, you are going to manifest that very thing. The universe is going to meet you where you're at. Now, if we spend our time focusing and fixating on the things that are not aligned with us, we will create more of that. Now, it seems like a simple thing, or it seems like, oh, maybe that's not it. Try it out and watch what happens. You are connected to the universe.
Yeah, your words, everything is.
The universe is going to match your energy at every corridor, corner, crossroads of your life. Right? So before I came to where I live at now, a lot of what I had to focus on was really violent shit. A lot of violent shit. Because that's all I knew. And even until this day, those experiences are alive in my body. Even though I've grown, even though I've expanded, I've transformed, certain situations will trigger that in me, because it's a part of my experience, especially when it comes to the safety of my wife and my children or my community. Mm-hmm. But I get to ask myself, I get to remind myself, just because it's visiting me doesn't mean it's mine. I let that shit go a long time ago. That's not me anymore. Right? So we get to choose. We can choose to turn on the political campaign, or we can choose to go meditate. We could choose to go spend time with our family. We could go choose to make food that is nourishing to our bodies and spend time with the people that we are aligned with and that we love. Or you can waste your time, worrying about what, all of the blues that they put on the news. Right? Because that's programming. Oh, such and such just got this, that, and the third down the street from where you live at. Every other night. So then now you go out the house with that mindset, and you're already on alert and on defense because they told you that on the news.
Exactly. Instead
of seeing that you are a creator, and the voice that you hear of the creator or the source is you. You are a part of it.
You are the news.
You are connected to it.
You are the news.
Every single thing you do is the news.
It's the news. Yeah, you're right.
So it's up to you. It's up to you. And there is no form of shifting accountability or responsibility that's going to ever work in that mindset.
What I'm thinking about right now, this is all kind of off subject, but
no, go for it.
Everything that you say always comes. It's interesting because you mentioned our music. Everything that you say and that I say, usually when I hear it, I can remember a song that we did that has that message in it. It's just interesting.
Of course.
Because we always did freestyles and it was always there. But that's where my mind was when you were talking about the news. Because there's that one song that you're like, yeah. But
what?
Nothing. I'm just thinking about that song, that's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nah, for real. It's in us.
Yeah.
And we get to choose. If we tap into our memory bank that lives in our bones and that lives in our bone marrow and that lives in our DNA, family, there's nothing you cannot align. That's as far as your purpose goes. There's nothing you can't manifest inside of your purpose. Nothing. You get to choose how this thing goes. But we've been taught to be victims of life. We've been taught to fear life. We've been taught to fear each other when we're all connected. Regardless of where people are at, you get to choose and have boundaries on where you meet people at, as far as if someone is on a different level or yada, 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 but it's still medicine there for you to receive.
Yeah, definitely.
It's still medicine for you. It's helping you refine your purpose.
Yeah.
It's helping you refine the changes that have happened in you when you go to the family reunion, and you go into the family reunion like, man, and everybody's still kind of talking about the same thing and still got the same kind of, characteristics. There is no real shifts that have happened. They are okay with living in the matrix. And that's fine too, because that's a decision you can make. I don't need a bunch of people to rally behind me. I'm going to do what I have to do because that's important to me. What's important to me, I don't need to make that important to someone else. I don't need to convince other people what's important to me. That's a waste of energy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to walk it out in the ways in which I need to walk it out.
So what about when you're living with people
Mm-hmm.
that don't necessarily always line up with the same thing, and then you
It still goes.
You it's like it's a fine line, right? Like it's hard to. I don't know how to say it in words, but I know you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I can speak to it.
Yeah, speak to it because I can't get it out.
Yeah, I say, you get to choose. That's the root of it all. You get to choose how this goes. You get to walk in your truth. I'm glad you said that, bro, because what I've experienced a natural born leader is different than someone that's trying to be in a leadership position that is not a leader. Those are two different people. Natural born leaders do not need to shout out at the mountaintop and say, I'm a leader. People just know based off their energy that they're a leader and they are on a mission. And what I've experienced is that when you're walking in your purpose and you're walking in that alignment, naturally, goes back to what I was saying a while ago. Naturally, what happens is that people start to be affected and infected by your own purpose and by your alignment with your ancestors and with your soul.
Yep.
Naturally.
Patience. And for me, I'm at a point where you have to have patience, Maybe eat
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Have patience, sure.
With it, and that's why I feel like sometimes I'm in the situation that I'm in, is because I'm being patient, and I might not want to be here all the time, and I might not. Sometimes I feel like it's not where I'm supposed to be, but at the same time, like I don't know, I'm here, so.
Yeah, and then you get to ask the questions, and family and TV world, you all get to ask that question. Why are you where you are if it's not in alignment?
Yeah.
Right? Is it coming out of love? Are you there out of love, or are you there out of fear? And I get to ask myself that, and I'm offering and providing a consideration for everyone. There's two emotions that you can be based in this physical third density.
Yeah, definitely.
It's love or fear.
Fear, yeah.
And you get to investigate and agitate that within yourself. Am I making decisions out of fear or because discomfort, right, is very much so tied to fear or being uncomfortable with the unknown. Definitely. Because there's unknown and there is no reward or there is no fulfillment without risk. Because you have to step into the complete darkness of a situation because you don't know what's on the other side. And some of the main people that live on this planet right now, the reasons that they're in the positions that they're in, and people all their lives told them that they weren't going to do this and they weren't going to do that, or I never thought you would do X, Y, Z, is because they stepped into the darkness. They took the biggest risk that they ever could. And guess what was on the other side of that? Their purpose. Yeah.
It's cool. It's a cool process. But then when you're in it, then it's like, what's next? So it's like, it's always, and that's the beautiful thing about the process. It's just like, it's the next step. It's the next thing. It's like, when do you reach that point of understanding enough, whether it's love or fear, where you're at, to make that move? You know what I mean?
Sure.
For me, anyway. For me, I mean, that's where I was at. So that's what
Yeah.
Because we've.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have. At least for me, I've made decisions out of fear. For sure.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm just
and that's a part of the experience.
Exactly.
That's a part of the experience. It's just when you tap into the memory, and you sit with yourself long enough, and to the point you're making, you're patient enough to be able to see what's inside of you, and what really, without any sort of coercion or external implications, or people trying to coax you in this way or that way, what's really alive inside of you. And often, because of the indoctrination and the programming, we don't spend enough time with ourselves. So then we end up getting up here,
Yeah.
and we end up thinking so much about things,
Yep.
you know.
And then it
And a lot of the
causes...
Mhm.
I'll go ahead.
Yeah, and a lot of the processes that I've been going through in the last 3 years is I've had front row seats to what that looks like. I've had front row seats to people who, can wear the mask and almost seem as if they are down for the cause, and the cause meaning the soul work, the shadow work. But you dig down a layer or two, a layer and a half, and you realize, like, oh, okay, that's some ego shit. You're not really doing the real shadow work because you're worried about this and this and this, right? And that's not for me to bring to them. I share that in this podcast with the respect that the family that's connecting to this podcast is open enough and curious enough to look at themselves, because it's not about anybody else.
It's not exactly. So that they're going, or whoever you're referring to is obviously going through their own process,
Of course.
And to be able to love them no matter where they're at, because
Of course.
that's the most important thing, It comes back to that, to
Yeah,
be there for them,
We're all connected, and I don't
Exactly.
I don't have any qualms about having boundaries around what that looks like for me. I'm okay with having boundaries, because a lot of times, as far as showing up for them, right, or being there for them, like, I have boundaries around, I can have boundaries for myself and how I choose to show up for other people. I can love you from a distance. I can also have spiritual things in motion on behalf of that person. I don't have to be physically in your space. I don't physically have to be around you. If my body and my spirit and my soul is not really interested in that kind of labor, I don't need to do that. And I can respect myself enough to love you from a distance. I don't need to be in your space. I don't need to be your biggest rally or ally and supporter, in a physical sense. Because when your heart is in balance and your heart is really connected, your heart chakra is really connected to the eternal, the love and the power that comes from that place, it is not physical anyway. But I have to also take in consideration what I'm available for, because I'm not just available for shenanigans. At the same time, I can love on you if we cross paths, and I understand that we're crossing paths for a reason, in regards to these front row seats that I've been able to witness. And I'm thankful I've been able to observe these, because I've learned so much. There's no disdain. There's no, like, oh, I don't point in the, nah, not at all. But, like, much love and respect, and go on your journey, and that's fine. That's fine. So yeah, one of the things I wanted to bring up in this kind of moment, of transition, it feels like, because it feels like, we kind of hit a few topics. And thank you, family, for tuning in. Again, this is the Mick and Jarmal Podcast, where we go over a lot of different topics, from spirituality to religion to modernity, from a lot of the things you've already heard. So being that you are a part of the real family and the soul connections, make sure you like, make sure you share, and you subscribe, because this is going to do what it needs to do for our people. And we're here because we obviously see ourselves. We see ourselves in our fellow folks that's on the planet right now, and there's no coincidence. So again, make sure that you share, you like, and you subscribe because we'll have a lot more coming soon. One of the main things that hit my spirit when I first got on the camera, actually before I got on the camera, was I wanted to send out an offering around, to the real souls on the planet. Like my brother Mick is saying, like, these different trials and tribulations, these different things that we go through in this experience, I just want to name that. Hang in there, y'all. Hang in there. I know that, like my brother Mick was talking about the different things that he's speaking to and the experiences he's had. I just really want y'all to understand something better said. This is not a coincidence. You are not alive in this time, in this age, in this era, just because you came here with a purpose, and we need you to be you and bring your medicine to the world, because we are doing that, and we will continue to do that, because you know why? That's the main thing that's on our spirits, our minds, and our souls every single day.
Every single day. Yeah.
How do I impact? How do I share? How do I leave this planet, not from an egotistical standpoint, but how do I leave this planet knowing I fulfilled what I came here to do? So I'm just saying to the real souls, hang in there. Hang in there. Because right on the other side of what externally, with the smoke and mirrors and all of the, like, that shit is not gonna, it has never taken root. It has never taken full root. It might seem like it. It's the Wizard of Oz. It's the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain type of effect. It's smoke and mirrors. Right? That in that movie, it illustrated a lot of like theatrics and a lot of illusions, in the form of holograms and these big grandiose, like, Dorothy really believed that these things was really happening. Come to find out, it was just a dream. Right? So understand that, like, this dream, this experience, I don't know if y'all have, I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably have had lucid dreams. And in a lucid dream, you get to dictate how the dream goes. I've had dreams of me saying, oh, you know what? I want to fly right now. Start flying. I have a dream. I've had these dreams in the past where, like, there's some, contention or trouble. I switch it up. Nah, that ain't going to happen. I stop it. It's the same thing for this life.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing for this life. I would offer you to be curious about your manifestation powers. I've seen it with my own eyes in the life that I lived in this moment. You get to decide. And as we go on in these different episodes and we bring this to the world, some of my lived experiences and where I come from, where I was raised, and where I live, and like how I live now, is completely different. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess since you were talking about that, I mean, I've known you since when? What year did we meet? Supposed year?
2012.
2012. I met Jamal on a basketball court, and we were shooting around, and he's like, have you ever heard of the third eye? And I was like, no. And then he explained it to me. And I was like, well, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're referring to, but I didn't know it by name because I just didn't read stuff like that. Like, I just was already, I would shut my eyes and I would already do that thing, So, like, and from that day, I watched his basic, like, his transformation, I don't know how much you weighed at that point, but you
a lot.
You had this ID. You had this ID, and you just, like, you look like a completely new person in, like, what, like 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
It happened so fast.
Something
so
like that.
Boom.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
It was quick. But yeah, I mean, I was just talking on, like, I was just touching base on what you were saying before.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, man, listen. Your soul is ready.
Cool to see. It's been cool to see.
Ashe. Likewise, man. Likewise. When you're ready, when you're ready and you finally get sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's like, like the bro was saying, it's within you. And that feeling of the clubs ain't really hitting the same, the same people in that frequency's not really doing it for you no more. You've changed friend groups. That's a real good sign that the awakening within your soul is knocking at the door. It's like, hey,
So can I
hey.
say something on that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So back in like high school, right? Like I'd be hanging out with my friends, and I'd always feel like I was just like out of place. Not that I didn't like them or like care for them, but we were always just, they were just drinking and we would be smoking and just like, it's just like I always felt like there was something else that at least I should be doing. I can't say we. I've done that too much in my life, but something that I should be doing, and
Right.
and and then they'd be like, you want to go do this, and I'd start to say no. I'd be like, no, 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 and then eventually they stop reaching out, and then you kind of miss that like community of people. Whether it's hard to explain, it's not really hard to explain. It's more just like, would I rather be with people that I'm not supposed to be with at the end of the day? Like, at least where they're at in their life. Should I be with them, or should I just be alone with myself? And I had to come to a point where I'm like, I got to be alone with myself, whether they stop calling me or not. And a lot of them did. Like I only talk to like a few people now because I just stopped going places with people. I never like to go to bars. I never like to do that stuff. That stuff never. I always just felt out of place. I always felt like I was in the wrong spot. Every single time I went, and I felt this feeling of like, I got to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense,
Yep.
like
Yep.
So yeah, but then you're left with a feeling of just being alone, and that can be tough at first, and then you start to build up yourself, and you start to understand that you're not actually alone ever. You're never alone, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're doing, you are not alone. If you listen close enough, there is so many. You're so far from alone. In the unseen realm, the things that you can't actually see with your eyes. Like, it's the most beautiful thing if you're open to it, and if you can connect to it. And it does take time being alone, which can cause what people call depression, where you go through a depressive state and you're feeling depressed, but you can come out of it without having other people pull you out of it, where you feel like, where you're not taking energy from other people, feeling like, okay, I took some energy from him, I'm feeling good, and then it's like, oh, you feel like shit, and now you're alone, now you got to go back out, and like, you're kind of like a vampire in a sense. You're like seeking.
Yeah.
You're seeking that, and it's. I'm not saying it to be like, oh, you shouldn't do that, but I'm just saying, like, spend some time with yourself, and you can truly become more at peace and have more understanding of who you are, and not become a person that you're actually not just a fit in with a group of people or with a certain person, or you know what I mean? Like, you really do have to spend that time alone in the shadows.
When we were kiddos, a lot of what we had, which was such a huge power tool for us to the spirit, was our imagination. And a lot of what school does, especially in Western culture, is it kind of trains you out of being imaginative, and imagination leads to creativity, and creativity leads to the harmonic frequency that we call art, right? Whether that's music, whether that's singing, whether that's visual, creating something with your hands. A lot of what you will find in yourself is your innate creativity and imagination. So, like the bro was saying, it's like, if you find yourself feeling low or down in energy, take a spiritual bath. You know, he called it, you know, and named it, which a lot of y'all understand it as depression. But another way to understand the word depression is deep rest. Your body is in need of deep rest, right? Your body needs rest. Take a spiritual bath. Love on yourself. Put some oils on. Put some nice fragrances on. Make some, you know, I mean, fall in love with yourself. Fall in love with yourself. Fall in love with the vessel that you have, and knowing that the purpose lives inside of that when you're in those moments. If you find you're feeling low, take a nap, you know, listen to some music, watch some documentaries, right? Like, there is a limitless amount of things that we can tap into when we jump outside of the confines of the programming and the ideology, the school of thought that it's work, it's pay bills, it's you know, look like I got my shit together adult, like that whole thing. You know, like, yeah, you need deep rest. You need a nice spiritual bath. You need to cleanse your body of all in your aura, of all the energy that stickies to your aura bubble when you go out the house. Right? So I just, based off what he's saying, I'm going to connect this piece to it. Tap into your imagination, your childlike imagination, and tap into that memory bank of the things you did innately. Like, again, the bro was talking about. There were things you did as a young child that nobody taught you or said that you just had an affinity towards it. There was things that you just naturally felt connected to and that you naturally did. And guess what? That memory is still alive in you, even if you've deviated or took a detour away from it. Right? There is nobody you need to prove anything to. You don't need to be validated. There is nothing that anybody else can give you that you can't give yourself. Because when you're giving it to yourself, then you are able to then share your medicine with other people and be impactful. So that's all I got on that, bro. You good?
Yeah.
All right, family. Looks like we had an hour, 4 minutes, 14 double sevens. The minerals are in the building. Mineral Clan is in the building. Shout out to my ancestors. This was a great way to really step into our purpose and to step into, you know, what we are responsible for. You know, again, just a little bit of context, a little bit of history on myself and Mick. We have done music. You know, we have been able to, thankfully, you know, with the guidance of our souls and the guidance of our people and our folks that stand at our backs, we have gathered a lot of tools, you know, cameras, lighting, microphones, you know, computers, like interfaces, all kinds of things. Like, me and this brother got some of the best equipment that you can have to make music. Yet, here we are using our throat chakras to impact the world and just have real conversations. So we appreciate y'all for joining us. This is the Mick and Jarmal Podcast. I'm Jamal.
I'm Mick.
And we love y'all, man. We'll see y'all soon. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. Ashe. Peace and love.